portents of doom. Across the galaxy, disturbing ripples spread through the warp, carrying echoes of an impending cosmic catastrophe. Even the thick warp storms, common in this dark era, failed to fully obscure the mounting dread. Above the red irradiated sands of Baal, the vigilant patrol fleets of the Blood Angels gathered data that grew more ominous by the day. Fragmented astropathic messages spoke of a colossal Tyrannid hive fleet, designated Hive Fleet Leviathan, surging through nearby sectors, devouring entire worlds and driving terrified survivors toward Baal's outer reaches. For Chapter Master Dante, the eldest and most venerated Space Marine commander in the entire Adeptus Astartes, these reports heralded a trial unlike any other. He summoned forth all Blood Angels scattered in distant war zones, while also imploring assistance from their successor chapters, the Grim Flesh Tearers under Gabriel Seth, the Regal Angels in Carmine, the Mysterious Angel Sanguine, and more. Yet no one could be certain that these reinforcements would be enough to halt the ravenous swarm that had effortlessly eradicated entire planetary populations. Desperate survivors from ravaged neighboring systems relayed tales of unstoppable Tyrannid fleets devouring biomass, growing stronger with each conquest. The Blood Angels, however, were determined. They had fought the Tyrannids before and knew the price of failure. Not only would Baal be extinguished, but the legacy of their Primarch Sanguinius would be jeopardized. Defending this sacred homeworld would test both the martial skill and the spiritual resilience of the Sons of the Angel. Preparations for the siege, Fortress of Baal, Prime and surroundings. Baal is a world of red deserts and radioactive dust storms, an environment so hostile that only a few scattered tribes can survive there. Yet this wasteland is also the holy cradle of the Blood Angels, shaping their recruits into some of the fiercest and most honorable warriors of the Imperium. At the planet's heart lies the Angel Citadel, an ancient fortress monastery whose outer walls are reinforced with advanced void shields, blessed plating, and statues of the winged Primarch, Sanguinius, poised as though urging his sons onward. Every inch of the fortress was now fortified, from the sprawling ramparts lined with anti-aircraft guns to the subterranean magazines, brimming with missiles, las cannons, and relic-heavy bolters. Even the sun-scorched plains were ringed with bunkers and minefields, creating kill zones specifically designed to slaughter incoming hordes. Arrival of allies. On Baal's secondary moons, Baal Secundus and Baal Indictus, the defenders worked feverishly to establish auxiliary fortifications, anticipating that the Tyrannids might land in multiple waves. The call for aid had gone out to successor chapters of the Blood Angels lineage. The Flesh Tearers, infamous for their brutal approach, arrived in battered but determined fleets, while more disciplined forces like the Angels on Carmine took up strategic defensive positions. Overcoming mutual distrust, these diverse brother chapters mustered around Baal for a final stand. Meanwhile, the initial scout reports confirmed that an advanced splinter of Hive Fleet Leviathan was inbound. By itself, this splinter could devastate entire sectors, yet it was but a fraction of the main swarm. Gathered around the fortress monastery, Chapter Master Dante and his war council pored over holoscreens, mapping Tyrannid movement trajectories and planning layered defenses. Everyone knew that if Baal fell, the repercussions would shake the entire southern segmentum of the Imperium. First clash in orbit. Contact in the outer system. As the Tyrannid vanguard breached the Baal system, every auger and sensor beeped with frenzied alarms. In the blackness of space, the bioships of Leviathan appeared like living silhouettes, armed with spore launchers and hives of winged creatures capable of boarding actions. Escort vessels of the Blood Angels, supported by strike cruisers from allied chapters, positioned themselves in layered cordons, attempting to delay the encroaching swarm. Organisms resembling organic frigates and battleships hammered Imperial warships with bioplasma salvos and living ammunition. For a time, the defenders prevailed through disciplined volleys and torpedo strikes, but the Tyrannids regarded each lost biovessel as an opportunity for evolution. Indeed, the swarm learned from every engagement, reconfiguring its brood spawn for the next assault. Costly sacrifices. To prevent the Tyrannids from capturing vital technology or turning captured assets against the defenders, Blood Angel captains occasionally scuttled their own vessels. Crews willingly detonated plasma cores, embracing self-immolation rather than allowing the swarm a foothold. Above Baal's ravaged moons, flaming ship hulks and organic debris drifted as silent memorials to the opening phase of the siege. From his flagship, the Omnis Angelus, Dante coordinated the fleet's maneuvers. Around him stood a cadre of captains, tech marines, and sanguinary priests tasked with safeguarding the precious gene seed. They knew these orbital battles were likely a mere prelude to the main assault. Indeed, when the scouting splinter proved formidable enough to reduce some defences to ruin, the defenders could only imagine the true might of the approaching Leviathan horde. Tyrannids descend upon the surface, mycetic spores and biopods. Once the advanced bioships took position in low orbit over Baal, they rained down mycetic spores by the thousands, akin to a meteor shower from an alien hell. Each spore pod carried innumerable brood organisms, termagants, hormagaunts, gin-stealers, and monstrous bioconstructs bred for war. The Blood Angels' powerful anti-air defences shot many from the skies, but even so, hundreds if not thousands of pods penetrated the atmosphere, crashing into the crimson dust with seismic force. The planet's landscape ignited in chaos. Plasma bursts and artillery shells scarred the desert, while grotesque tyrannid creatures tore across the sand in unstoppable waves. Despite the scorching radiation and swirling dust storms, the swarm adapted at an alarming rate, shifting forms and unleashing specialized weapons grown to thrive in Baal's extreme conditions. The desert killing fields. Expecting an open-field war, the defenders had meticulously seeded the dunes around Baal Prime with automated turrets, minefields and gravitational traps. Swift tactical squads patrolled the canyons, funneling the Tyranids into kill zones. Although these measures inflicted significant losses on the invaders, the sheer volume of Tyranids made every victory feel like a drop in a bottomless ocean. The swarm never ceased. It merely mutated and attacked again, pushing the Blood Angels' fortifications closer to breaking point. The fall of the lunar outposts, the struggle for Baal Secundus. While the main swarm targeted Baal itself, Tyrannid tendrils enveloped Baal Secundus, a strategic moon once used for recruiting the Blood Angels' aspirants. Stalwart garrisons had dug in there, bolstered by artillery batteries and entrenched strongpoints, but the Tyrannids swarmed in numbers beyond comprehension. Adaptive strains quickly neutralized the defenders' weaponry. Subterranean assault organisms collapsed tunnels and bunkers, severing lines of communication. Over weeks of furious conflict, Baal Secundus was overrun. The defending Space Marines fought valiantly, initiating final self-destruction protocols in their bunkers to deny the Tyrannids any advantage. Those still alive reluctantly evacuated to Baal Prime, carrying bitter accounts of monstrous bioforms building capillary towers to harvest the moon's biomass. The Blood Angels recognized a grim reality. If they could not even hold Baal Secundus, the main planet's defense might also be doomed. Peril among the asteroids. Asteroid outposts and small orbital stations fared no better. Many supply ships attempting to bring reinforcements or material from these minor installations were ambushed by lurking Tyrannid drones. Biovessels attacked in swarms, leaving nothing but wreckage and a smattering of emergency signals. Techno-marine enclaves scrambled to protect essential resources, but chaos reigned across the entire system. Every corner seemed infested with Tyrannids, each wave more tenacious than the last. Encroaching shadow of the hive mind, psychic oppression. Just before the full brunt of Leviathan struck, a phenomenon known as the shadow in the warp spread through the Baal system. Astropaths screamed in pain as a crushing psychic presence severed their connection to the warp, making requests for Imperial reinforcements nearly impossible. If the Blood Angels hoped for outside support from the wider Imperium, they would have to face the likelihood it would never come. Baal was becoming an isolated battleground, cut off by the Tyrannid swarm's psychic blockade. Internal tensions. With communications faltering, tensions rose among the Allied forces. The Flesh Tearers, notorious for their brutal approach, clashed philosophically with more traditional successors like the Angels in Carmine, who valued discipline and careful coordination. Yet Chapter Master Dante reminded them that they needed every possible ally. The swarm's encroaching presence overshadowed petty disputes. If they could not fight as one, all would be lost. From his command center deep within the Angel's citadel, Dante scrutinized the largest Tyrannid signatures on the orbital displays. Massive bio-capital ships, each dwarfing the mightiest Imperial battleships, were drawing near. The final stage of the invasion was imminent. The defenders only prayed they had done enough to hold the line. The Hive fleet unleashes its full strength. Planetary assault on an unimaginable scale. Without warning, Leviathan's main force descended upon Baal. Gargantuan spore pods lit the sky like malevolent fireworks, their organic hulls streaked with living flames as they tore through the atmosphere. Tens of thousands of Tyrannid creatures erupted across multiple drop zones, creating simultaneous breakthroughs in nearly every sector. Even the mightiest strongpoints groaned under the weight of bio-artillery blasts and unrelenting floods of chitin, claws, and acid. Towering carnifexes and tyrannofexes smashed through bunkers, forming monstrous corridors of destruction. Winged gargoyles and harpies swooped overhead, targeting supply lines and bombarding defenders with spore mines. The entire planet seemed to quake with the Tyrannid onslaught. Battle for the perimeter. Dante and his council had designated the primary defensive lines around the fortress monastery on Baal Prime. Elite companies from multiple successor chapters, supplemented by heavy artillery and land raider squadrons, formed a ring of steel against the Tyrannids. Each kill zone erupted in apocalyptic displays of fire as bolter shells, rockets and lasbeams tore the swarm apart. Yet for every brood eradicated, more advanced bioforms arrived, sporting thicker armor and deadlier weapons symbiotes. The Blood Angels fought with near-superhuman resolve, refusing to retreat even a single meter, but the odds seemed insurmountable. Tyrannid synaptic creatures guided massive clusters of gaunts forward, wave after wave. The defenders realized that their carefully laid strategies might not suffice. The genetic curse emerges, the Red Thirst. Caught in the crucible of carnage, many Blood Angels found themselves slipping into the Red Thirst, that dark, vampiric craving embedded within their gene seed. Usually held in check by discipline and ritual, this impulse surged in the face of overwhelming hostility and the smell of endless blood. Whole squads fell into a frenzied state, ripping beasts apart with their bare hands and ignoring grievous wounds. While the savagery drove back the Tyrannids temporarily, such reckless fury also threatened the strategic balance. Some squads disobeyed direct orders, flinging themselves deep into Tyrannid throngs. Their unstoppable ferocity kept pockets of the line from collapsing, but also risked chaos and friendly casualties. The Black Rage. Even more terrifying was the onset of the Black Rage. Some brothers began to believe they were reliving Sanguinius's final stand during the Horus heresy, seeing the fortress as the walls of terror itself, with enemies painted as Horus's traitors. Locked in hallucination, these Death Company warriors became unstoppable killing machines, impervious to pain or reason. Chaplains and sanguinary priests attempted to guide them, channeling the mania toward the greatest threats. But none could ignore the truth. Those consumed by the Black Rage would never truly return to sanity. The spectacle of entire companies lost to madness weighed heavily on all who witnessed it. And yet, ironically, it was precisely this cursed rage that sometimes turned the tide in local engagements. Their sacrifices became living exemplars of the Blood Angels' tragic burden. Pivotal duels and feats of heroism. Hunting synapse beasts. Key to disrupting Tyrannid swarms was eliminating synapse creatures, hive tyrants, swarm lords, and other focal points of the collective mind. This meant bold raids by jump pack veterans or Terminator strike teams, braving hordes of gaunts to deliver melter bombs or power sword thrusts directly into the beast's vital organs. Whenever such a synapse linchpin died, local broods fell into disarray, buying precious time for the embattled defenders. In one famed encounter, Chaplain Lamartz confronted a winged hive tyrant that oversaw thousands of lesser creatures. Within the crumbling ruins of a fortress rampart, Lamartz, empowered by unshakable faith, pressed through the swirling melee and delivered a thunder hammer strike that shattered the beast's skull. Though gravely injured, his victory stymied a massive push that otherwise would have overwhelmed the entire sector, awakening ancient dreadnoughts. In the darkest hour, the Blood Angels activated their oldest relics, dreadnoughts housing the remains of venerable warriors from past crusades. Their metal sarcophagi, adorned with medallions and scrolls of honor, thundered across the dunes. The sight of venerable heroes, some of whom had fought in legendary campaigns centuries before, bolstered morale. Among them was Praxedis Aurelius, a revered dreadnought whose war flamer incinerated swathes of tyrannids in a blazing inferno, inspiring awe among allies and dread among foes. The Citadel Gate. Walls of the fortress monastery. The gates of the Angel Citadel, leading into the very heart of Baal's fortress, were the linchpin of the defense. Held by Terminator squads, Predator tanks, and the resplendent Sanguinary Guard in golden armor, these final redoubts stood as bastions of Sanguinius's legacy. The architecture of the monastery courtyard was repurposed as a labyrinth of defensive turrets and choke points. Yet towering bio-titans, colossal Tyrannid war engines on par with Imperial Titans, rumbled into view. Their acid lobbers and living cannons battered shield generators, and some of them used their bulk as living battering rams. One after another, sections of the walls cracked under the onslaught. The defenders valiantly repulsed the leading monsters, but each success was overshadowed by fresh waves of chitinous horror. The Sanguinary Guard's sacrifice. Clad in ornate jump packs and halo-like crests, the Sanguinary Guard formed the last line before the monastery gate. Their brilliant golden plate was soon caked in blood and acid. Some, maddened by the red thirst, hurled themselves beneath the feet of bio-titans, detonating demolition charges. Though such acts briefly halted the monstrous beasts, the unstoppable press of the swarm threatened to tear open the fortress gates at last. Orbital crisis and waning hope, Tyrannid space, superiority. Above Baal, Imperial naval forces struggled to hold orbital positions. The largest hive ships of Leviathan unleashed new spore forms and lesser escort vessels. One by one, the star fortresses and orbital defense platforms ran low on torpedoes and munitions. Gaps opened in the blockade, allowing the swarm to deliver near-constant dropships onto the planet. Some monitors and destroyers attempted suicide runs, ramming the brood ships in desperate last stands, but their efforts could not fully arrest the Tyrannid's momentum. With communications frayed and seemingly infinite Tyranids assaulting every corner, the defenders of Baal wavered. Even the most stoic veteran sergeants questioned their chance of survival. Morbid whispers spread: if Leviathan devoured the gene seed of Sanguinius, future Tyrannid evolutions might produce unstoppable supermonsters. Such grim reflections galvanized some into fighting harder, yet sowed despair among others. The question hung in the air: could Baal truly withstand this onslaught? Unexpected salvation, the primaris miracle, arrival of primaris fleets. In this darkest hour, unexpected warp signatures manifested on Baal's perimeter. Fighting through the storms came a relief force carrying primaris space marines, newly created by Archmagos Belisarius Call under the orders of Gilliman. These primaris, equipped with advanced MKX power armor and refined gene seed, represented a fresh evolution of the Adeptus Astartes. Worn by exhaustion and outnumbered beyond reckoning, Dante welcomed these newcomers as a beacon of hope. Captain Aphael led one detachment, pledging full support to the Blood Angels in their hour of greatest need. Veteran sergeants initially eyed these new brethren with skepticism, but survival outweighed tradition. The swarm's pressure demanded every capable bolter and blade, reinforcing the defense. Primaris detachments deployed into the worst battle zones: Baal's battered moons, collapsed bastions, and even sections of the fortress itself. Their powerful bolt rifles and plasma weaponry proved devastating against mid- to large-sized Tyranids. Under their covering fire, exhausted squads rotated off the lines to reorganize. Many older Blood Angels found themselves indebted to these newfound brothers, forging a bond of respect sealed in the fires of battle. Counter-offensives and a shifting tide. Unified by shared desperation, the combined forces mounted a series of targeted strikes on Tyrannid synapse hubs. Assault Marines, guided by teleport beacons, launched pinpoint raids on hive tyrants and zoanthropes. Killing these psychic linchpins disrupted the swarms they controlled, creating confusion among countless lesser tyrannids. With each localized triumph, the defenders regained a sliver of ground, culling the tyrannid presence and stabilizing their lines. Hope stirred within the battered ranks of the Blood Angels. For the first time since the invasion began, they witnessed that the all-consuming foe was not entirely invincible. The burned husks of tyrannid corpses piled high on kill zones, each mound symbolizing a fleeting edge over the unstoppable swarm. For a brief window, the defenders seemed on the cusp of restoring functional lines of supply. Baal Prime's upper battlements were partially reclaimed. Deep within the fortress, Tech Marines reactivated some shield generators, while chaplains led rites to reinforce morale. Yet Dante, ever the seasoned commander, remained wary. Far above, a massive tyrannid mothership lingered, dwarfing anything the defenders had yet faced. The war, he knew, was far from won. The final offensive and Baal's fate, Leviathan's ultimate strike. In a sudden orchestrated surge, Leviathan unleashed its final wave. Gargantuan hive ships flooded low orbit. Vast spore chimney creatures and bio-titans descended upon Baal's major strongpoints. The defenders mustered every gun, every dreadnought, every primaris squad, but the renewed tyrannid assault smashed through entire positions. Squads of monstrous tyrannid artillery, wholly new biotypes, opened acidic bombardments that ravaged fortifications and threatened to breach the monastery's inner courtyards. On the front lines, the flesh-tearers fought like beasts incarnate, drenched in gore, while the sanguinary guard rallied for a last stand at the gates. The entire planet burned, drowning in the madness of incessant tyrannid waves. Yet the unwavering courage of the Blood Angels lit a faint spark in the darkness. Just as the battle neared a catastrophic tipping point, tyrannid activity in certain sectors abruptly ceased. Reports flooded in that numerous bioships were withdrawing from orbit, and brood swarms on the ground became disorganized, in some cases turning on each other. Whether due to some unknown warp signal or a new threat elsewhere in the galaxy, the hive mind seemed forced to divert its primary forces away from Baal. Sensing an opening, Dante commanded a massive counterattack. Alongside the primaris and remaining successor detachments, the Blood Angels purged the tyrannids from critical bastions. Dreadnoughts and heavy armor spearheaded advances through the desert, annihilating leaderless clusters. Though thousands of tyrannids remained, their impetus had waned. In a sweeping push, the defenders secured enough of the planet's surface to declare a tentative victory. Aftermath and a new dawn. Ashes of heroes. When the dust finally settled, Baal lay ravaged. Much of its fortress monastery lay in ruins, entire satellite outposts reduced to rubble. The death toll soared, encompassing countless brother Marines and revered champions. Many relics and storied banners were lost to flames, and the once proud spires of the citadel lay fractured. Yet the fundamental truth prevailed. Baal still belonged to the Blood Angels. Though Hive Fleet Leviathan had not been obliterated, its withdrawal granted the defenders a priceless reprieve. Surviving chapters, once estranged, now stood united by unbreakable bonds of blood and sacrifice. Chapter Master Dante contemplated the staggering toll. The mighty fortress needed rebuilding, the surface needed purging of lingering spores and stray bioforms, but for the moment a flicker of gratitude eased the sting of sorrow. They had endured the unstoppable at unimaginable cost. A new chapter in Blood Angel history. The arrival and integration of the primaries signaled an epical change for the Blood Angels. With so many veterans lost, their gene seed banks depleted, these newly engineered warriors became a lifeline for the chapter's future. Yet their introduction prompted fresh dilemmas. Could the chapter retain its identity and ancient rites? Would the red thirst and black rage manifest differently among these upgraded gene lines? Those questions, however, were for tomorrow. For now, the Blood Angels took solace in the knowledge that Baal, bruised but unbroken, still stood under the Angel's banner. From the howling deserts to the half-shattered fortress walls, their homeworld had survived, forging a legend of defiance against impossible odds. The torch of eternal service. With the echoes of battle faded and the skies cleared of spores, the Blood Angels held a mournful procession in the citadel courtyard. Chaplains recited solemn litanies, praising the fallen and honouring the name of Sanguinius, their angelic primarch. Sanguinary priests reverently gathered the remains and gene seed of lost brothers, vowing to uphold the continuity of the angels' legacy no matter the cost. Dante, surrounded by ruined battlements and smouldering wrecks, spoke but briefly, his voice laden with sorrow yet tempered by unyielding hope. He reminded the gathered battle brothers that Sanguinius's example was not just one of angelic grace, but of perseverance in the face of hopeless odds and a commitment to wrest victory from the jaws of despair. No one understood this better than the sons of the angel, forever burdened by curses entwined with their nobility. So concluded the siege and battle for Baal, a defining moment branded into the genetic and spiritual tapestry of the Blood Angels and their successors, a testament of unwavering duty, heroic sacrifice, and the willingness to confront even the darkest monstrosities for the sake of humanity. In the embers of that monstrous conflagration, a new spark of resilience was born. The Blood Angels and their allies would rebuild, even as the tyrannid horde licked its wounds somewhere beyond the pale stars. The war for survival continued, but now at least Baal would stand another day. The Clarion Call, a galaxy in turmoil. In the wake of the colossal invasion by Hive Fleet Leviathan, the Blood Angels found themselves battered and undermanned. Their beloved homeworld Baal lay scarred, fortresses crumbled, weapons stockpiles nearly depleted, and entire companies of mighty space marines lost in the defense. Although they had survived the devastation of Baal, the cost was staggering. Thousands of loyal sons of Sanguinius had perished in the struggle. Throughout the galaxy, the Great Rift, also known as the Cicatrix Maledictum, had severed warp routes and isolated sectors. Astropathic messages arrived fractured, or not at all. Even among the stalwart Adeptus Astartes, despair simmered beneath stoic exteriors. Chapter Master Dante, burdened by grief for the fallen and a renewed sense of duty, wondered if further help would ever reach them. Then rumours spread. The avenging son, Guilliman, was leading a vast crusade across the stars, the Indomitus Crusade, dispatching newly formed space marines to embattled chapters. Whispers spoke of these warriors as a fresh breed, primaris marines, more formidable even than standard Astartes. Dante, though hopeful, tempered any optimism. The warp storms had scattered entire fleets. Reinforcements, if they came at all, might not arrive before Baal found itself once again in the crosshairs of Xenos predators, or worse still, traitor legions hungry for vengeance. Faint glimmers of hope. Amid the ash-laden winds of Baal's deserts, squads of surviving Blood Angels continued to cleanse the surface of tyrannid stragglers. The fortress monastery's watchtowers scanned the skies for any sign of inbound vessels, friendly or otherwise. Tension weighed upon all who remained. Some insisted no relief would arrive, that they must rebuild from their own depleted ranks. Others believed fervently in the Emperor's grace, certain that events beyond mortal ken would guide help to Baal's orbit at the 11th hour. In those days, few recognized that a great armada was indeed charting an unpredictable course toward the Baal system. Trusting newly established warp corridors reopened by Guilliman, a contingent of strike groups laden with primaris space marines risked the tempestuous warp to reach the sons of Sanguinius in their time of dire need. Their navigators, operating on partial intelligence, pressed onward through the gloom, guided by the faint psychic resonance of Baal's defenders and by their unwavering faith in Guilliman's cause. The Stormbreakers, an armada emerges. Out beyond Baal's outer moons, auger arrays and sentry stations suddenly detected the arrival of unfamiliar signals. Initially, suspicion prevailed. Tyrannids had used ruses before, launching bioships that mimicked Imperial transponders. Yet as the signals grew stronger, the chapter's orbital monitors confirmed the truth. These were genuine warships of the Imperium, broadcasting ident codes associated with Guilliman's Indomitus Crusade. Word spread throughout Baal's fortress monastery. Maintenance crews, tech marines, and battered squads paused to absorb the news. Imperial warships had breached the warp storms and approached Baal. Even in this age of darkness, hope rekindled, if only tentatively. Within hours, Chapter Master Dante prepared to receive these ships. They came carrying the promise of relief and perhaps the uncertain blessing of a new era. Primaris disembarkation. Vessels of all classes, battle barges, strike cruisers and escort frigates emerged into synchronous orbit. From their hulls, landers descended through Baal's dusty skies, braving crosswinds and radstorms. Ramps lowered onto the scarlet sands, revealing companies of primaris space marines. Taller and broader than standard Astartes, they bore new MKX power armor. Their heraldry reflected both the universal mark of the Indomitus Crusade and the crest of the Blood Angels, signifying they carried Sanguinius's gene seed. Their commanding officer, Captain Aphael, requested an audience with Dante. On the wide parade grounds outside the fortress, battered columns of surviving Blood Angels stood in silent formation. Many whispered uncertainty. Would these newcomers understand Sanguinius's legacy, his noble traditions? Could they possibly share the burdens of the Red Thirst and the Black Rage? Initially, few had answers. They could only watch as Captain Aphael knelt before Dante, pledging unwavering loyalty to the chapter and to the memory of Sanguinius. It was a pledge that would soon be tested in fire. A new generation on trial. The primaris marines quickly spread out, reinforcing key defensive positions, aiding in the rebuilding of fortifications and patrolling Baal's wastelands to exterminate any lurking tyrannid creatures. In every engagement, these newcomers displayed formidable prowess. Their refined organs and enhanced physiology provided greater resilience and strength than even the veteran Blood Angels. They were unflinchingly professional, yet also somewhat aloof, uncertain how best to integrate themselves into the chapter's close-knit culture. Among the classic Blood Angels, some felt relieved, grateful for extra hands and bolters. Others regarded the primaris with quiet suspicion. Questions arose. Were these strangers truly Blood Angels? Did they fully carry the flaws and blessings of Sanguinius's gene legacy, or would they remain untouched by curses that had defined the chapter's identity for millennia? In the halls of the fortress monastery, ancient murals of Sanguinius seemed to gaze down upon these developments with silent judgment. Clashes of tradition, diverging bloodlines. The presence of primaris reinforcements inevitably sparked tensions. Some older veterans had spent centuries grappling with their gene curse, upholding rituals that symbolized a daily, spiritual battle. They wondered if these newcomers, grown in the forges of Archmago's Call, might view the Black Rage and Red Thirst as distant myths. Brother Captain Tirael, a grizzled warrior who had thrice resisted the onset of the Red Thirst, voiced these concerns openly. At a war council convened by Dante, Tirael questioned whether the primaris marines could genuinely understand what it meant to stand at the precipice of madness, haunted by the angelic face of Sanguinius. Captain Aphael, caught off guard, admitted that his warriors had seen hints of the chapter's flaws in certain battle scenarios. Some primaris, though not many, had shown early signs of thirst or visions, indicating that they were not immune to Sanguinius's curse. This revelation hung over the war council like an unspoken vow. The new and old Blood Angels would have to face the same harrowing fate if the traitor hordes or Zeno's nightmares pressed them hard enough. The sanguinary priest's dilemma. Watching from the sidelines, sanguinary priests wrestled with their own conflict. These revered apothecaries had for centuries preserved the chapter's gene seed, nurtured its recruits, and administered the blood rites integral to the Blood Angel's spiritual identity. Now they beheld a gene seed variant shaped by Guilliman's command. Although the primaris stock carried the essence of Sanguinius, it was also subject to modifications beyond their ken. Priest Adoniel, known for his devotion to both science and faith, suggested that the primaris might represent a path toward overcoming the Red Thirst and Black Rage. If so, the chapter could avoid future tragedies. Yet others felt that removing the curses might also erase the fire of passion and heroism that had defined them for 10,000 years. This question, whether freedom from the curses was a blessing or a heretical betrayal of Sanguinius's legacy, remained unanswered. When allied flesh-tearers arrived, led by the savage Gabriel Seth, they added further complexity to the debate. The flesh-tearers, stricken even more severely by the red thirst, observed the primaris with guarded skepticism. In the dim corridors of Baal's fortress, Seth reportedly cornered Captain Aphel, demanding to know if these Cawl-born marines would truly share the flesh-tearers' fury. "If you do not carry our faults," Seth growled, "do you also not carry our spirit?" Aphael responded humbly, emphasizing the genetic bond they all shared through Sanguinius. Though these new marines might experience the curses differently, they would fight and bleed for the chapter's survival. In the end, while not fully satisfied, Seth refrained from open condemnation. For the moment, the pressing need to rebuild defenses and fend off future invasions outweighed the deeper genealogical rifts. The path forward: joint operations. As the dust settled on Baal's ravaged deserts, Dante and Aphael orchestrated a series of joint training operations. Veteran squads, grizzled survivors of the Devastation, fought alongside newly initiated primaris marines. They faced test battles in the irradiated plains, hammered by scorching winds and the occasional pockets of surviving tyrannids. During these engagements, the synergy between the older Blood Angels' raw, indomitable fervour and the methodical discipline of the primaris shone through. In one memorable exercise, the combined force ambushed a hidden nest of hormagaunts, employing advanced primaris fire support while tactical assault squads closed in with chainswords. Casualties were minimal, and the operation concluded with triumphant shouts echoing across the dunes. Such moments of unity convinced Dante that the arrival of the primaris was more than just a stroke of luck. It might be the key to the chapter's continued existence. After the success of these collaborative campaigns, Dante summoned the chapter's senior priests and chaplains. They prepared an ancient binding ritual historically reserved for inducting new companies into the chapter. This time, the ritual included primaris recruits. Inside the fortress's grand hall of sacrifice, golden candelabras cast flickering light across murals of Sanguinius's deeds. Incense mingled with the heady metallic scent of blood, a symbolic offering to reaffirm the bond between Sanguinius and all who bore his gene seed. Chaplains intoned the litanies of the angel, and each primaris marine came forward, kneeling in solemn respect. Sanguinary priests drew a measured portion of the recruit's blood into chalices, blessing it alongside vials of gene seed from the chapter's vaults. In that moment, centuries of tradition and decades of new science met, forging a spiritual covenant that transcended generational divides. With the binding ritual complete, Dante addressed the chapter, both its new primaris and its surviving veterans. He spoke from the very steps of the ancient dais where Sanguinius himself was once rumoured to have stood. His voice, though weighted by grief for the countless fallen, carried an undercurrent of hope. "In our darkest hour, the Imperium has not forsaken us," he declared. "Though Baal smoulders with the memory of Leviathan's onslaught, we endure. Sanguinius's legacy endures. And now, in these new sons, we see the enduring promise of our Primarch reborn. Let no one doubt their worth. The blood we share is red with the same vow of loyalty, until the last breath." As the chapter roared in unison, the fortress's high arches reverberated with faith renewed. For the first time since the Devastation, many Blood Angels felt a genuine spark of optimism, recognizing that the primaris were not a threat to tradition, but a necessary evolution of the chapter's lineage. A precarious, yet promising future. Beyond the fortress walls, Baal still bore the scars of war. Swathes of desert remained infested with tyrannid organisms, and the threat of future invasions persisted. Meanwhile, the Great Rift continued to churn, dooming entire regions to isolation and chaos. Nonetheless, the Blood Angels, bolstered by the primaris reinforcements, set about rebuilding. New fortifications rose amid the ruins. Old bastions were repaired, and recruitment efforts pressed on to refill the ranks. Side by side, classic Blood Angels and primaris marines patrolled Baal's battered landscape, aware that their greatest challenges might still lie ahead. Under Dante's stalwart leadership, the chapter looked to the future with guarded hope, determined to preserve Sanguinius's spirit in a galaxy consumed by war. For though much had changed, the curses remaining, the traditions evolving, the essence of the Blood Angels' duty remained unaltered, to fight on for humanity's sake, ever guided by the angelic light of their beloved Primarch. Aftermath and consequences. A world in recovery. When the final echoes of battle died away, a deep silence settled upon Baal. It was an uncanny stillness, broken only by the moaning wind across the planet's radioactive deserts and the distant rumble of collapsing Tyrannid spore towers. The fortress monastery, once revered as a testament to the Blood Angels' resilience, now bore gaping breaches in its outer walls. Entire spires had toppled during the fighting. Craters from orbital bombardments marred the approach to the citadel, and the once proud architecture bristled with scars from a war that had nearly spelled the end for Sanguinius's sons. Amid this devastated panorama, Chapter Master Dante and his war council surveyed the wreckage. The aftermath of Hive Fleet Leviathan's onslaught stretched far beyond the physical damage. Entire companies of veteran Blood Angels were reduced to a fraction of their former glory. The twisted carcasses of tyrannid bioforms littered the dunes. Even the most battle-hardened warriors spoke in hushed tones, as if the planet itself was still trembling from the trauma. Yet for all the heartbreak etched into the battered walls, one defiant truth remained. Baal had survived. Tally of the fallen. In the days immediately following the invasion, squads of surviving Marines, now including numerous primaris brothers, laboured to recover the bodies of the fallen. Tech Marines and servitors combed the red sand dunes for lost war gear, gene seed capsules, and relics that might yet be salvaged. Sanguinary priests worked tirelessly in triage stations, carefully extracting the precious gene seed from those who had died, that it might one day help rebuild the chapter's future. These funerary duties left a profound impact on the newcomers. The primaris Marines, many of whom had never witnessed the Red Thirst or the Black Rage in full, now stood shoulder to shoulder with older warriors whose sorrow transcended anything documented in the Adeptus Astartes Codex. Some primaris volunteers knelt in the bloody sand, offering silent prayers for heroes they had never known, forging a bond of empathy and respect that overshadowed any initial mistrust. Death had become the common language uniting classic and new Blood Angels alike. Spiritual reckoning. Even as the fortresses and defences required immediate attention, the chapter's spiritual wounds demanded equal care. Chaplains and sanguinary priests organised prolonged vigils in the chapel of the fortress monastery. They lit candles for each lost brother, chanting litanies that evoked Sanguinius's sacrifice. Many warriors, both veteran and new, experienced vivid nightmares, memories of the battle, or haunting visions of the angel. For the older Blood Angels, who had fought in countless wars, this horror was familiar territory. For the primaris Marines, it was an introduction to the paradoxical nature of Sanguinius's legacy, an inheritance of glory, but also anguish. In private ceremonies, chaplains formally inducted groups of primaris Marines into the deeper mysteries of the chapter's faith. Ritual anointments with consecrated blood symbolized the communion of old and new. Though the primaris gene seed had been refined, it was not entirely free of the curses. Indeed, scattered cases of feral impulses and visions reminded everyone that the dual afflictions, the Red Thirst and the Black Rage, could still manifest in unexpected ways. Yet for all the risk, these ceremonies also imparted a renewed sense of unity. So many had died defending Baal that the chapter's cultural identity transcended generational divides. They were all sons of the angel, standing vigil over a homeworld baptized in tyrannid gore, rebuilding the chapter's might. As the dust settled, Tech Marines and Fortress personnel initiated colossal reconstruction efforts. They patched compromised bastions with ceramite plating and reinforced entire corridors with newly forged steel from Baal's orbital foundries. Dormant manufacturum segments whirred to life, producing small arms and armor to replace the staggering losses. Meanwhile, the battered fleets in orbit were refurbished with whatever salvageable components had survived the Tyrannid siege. In parallel, Chapter Master Dante recognized the dire need for replenishment. Although many veterans still stood, the chapter's numbers had dwindled to a fraction of its strength before the invasion. The primaris Marines, brought through the Indomitus Crusade, instantly proved their worth. Their natural resilience to certain gene flaws, combined with their advanced organ structures, offered a boon to the chapter's future. Some older warriors feared this might dilute the Blood Angels' distinctive traditions. Others saw in it a lifeline that could save future generations from succumbing to the Black Rage in catastrophic numbers. Dante, for his part, refused to see these outcomes in black and white terms. This synergy, he believed, was precisely what Sanguinius would have wanted, a chapter evolving in the crucible of adversity while still protecting its core identity. Diplomatic repercussions. Beyond Baal, word of the Blood Angels' stand against Leviathan spread across the Imperium. Scribes and historians chronicled how Dante and his allied successors had held firm against an apocalyptic tide. Their story inspired war-torn planets and overshadowed enclaves, reigniting flickers of hope in corners ravaged by orcs, chaos, or other tyrannid hive fleets. Imperial commanders began referencing the Baal miracle, praising the synergy between the veterans' indomitable faith and the primaris' unyielding resolve. Not all was celebratory, however. Certain factions of the Inquisition quietly probed the nature of the Blood Angels' gene curse. Could the large-scale introduction of primaris marine lines be an unintentional tampering with tainted genetics? For the moment, political concerns were overshadowed by the chapter's proven heroics. Yet Dante remained ever vigilant. How quickly the Imperium's gratitude could shift to suspicion if evidence of uncontained gene flaws surfaced. Above all, the fear that any mass outbreak of the Red Thirst might draw condemnation from the Imperium was never fully dispelled. The future of the primaris in red armor. Within Baal's fortress monastery, new battle brothers joined the ranks of Devastator, Tactical, and Assault Intercessor squads. Under the guidance of veteran sergeants, these primaris Marines refined their knowledge of Baal's intricacies, learning to navigate radioactive storms, to anchor jump-pack maneuvers in fine red dust, and to feel the ineffable presence of Sanguinius that seemed to linger throughout the fortress. They adopted the chapter's artistic traditions, painting murals and forging golden iconography that honored the angel's sacrifice. Some primaris Marines began showing minor erratic signs reminiscent of the Red Thirst. Sanguinary priests carefully tracked these deviations. Far from treating them as aberrations, the priests employed centuries-old rites to help these new brethren rein in their impulses. Chaplains preached that this synergy of discipline and tradition proved the spiritual tapestry of the chapter still wove itself around Sanguinius's dream, neither wholly free of the curse nor enslaved by it. Unfolding challenges. Even as Baal's reconstruction progressed, new threats emerged. Splinter fleets of tyrannids still prowled the fringes of the system, while in the broader Imperium, Chaos warbands and Xenos empires capitalized on the Great Rift's disruptions. The Blood Angels had no illusions. Their defense of Baal was merely a prelude to further trials. Indeed, Dante, oldest of the chapter masters, could sense an intangible tension in the warp, like a cosmic drumbeat heralding another storm. Yet with the chapter's synergy of primaris and classic marines, there was a renewed measure of readiness. Patrol fleets set forth from Baal to reclaim lost outposts or rescue besieged allies. Entire strike forces soared to neighboring systems, ensuring that never again would a new Leviathan brood ambush them unawares. Meanwhile, Tech Marines oversaw the continuing forging of enhanced armor and relic blades, ensuring the chapter was prepared for the next great test of their devotion. Lessons in sacrifice and unity. Amid these swirling transformations, a philosophical shift began taking root throughout the chapter. The ordeal had demonstrated that the Blood Angels' greatest strength lay not in an absence of flaws, but in their capacity to uphold nobility and self-control, even as they fought an internal war within their own gene seed. Observing the older brothers in the throes of the Red Thirst, the primaris Marines came to revere them not as cautionary tales, but as testaments to unwavering discipline and honor. Conversely, the veterans recognized in the new arrivals a kind of bright-eyed determination, a willingness to serve that mirrored Sanguinius's ancient idealism. Chaplains wrote new litanies to extol this unity, weaving the stories of Devastation survivors together with that of the Indomitus Crusade's champions. War songs and battle sermons began referencing the twin wings of the chapter, symbolizing the synergy of old and new gene lines. This cultural bridging brought a sense of rejuvenation. Though they mourned the lost glories of the past, the chapter dared to look forward, acknowledging that evolution did not mean betrayal of tradition, but rather its continuation in a universe that never ceased to demand sacrifice. Dante's resolve. At the heart of Baal's citadel, Chapter Master Dante bore the burden of survival. The toll of millennia weighed on him more than ever. Yet for all his weariness, Dante saw in the post-Devastation era an opportunity to vindicate Sanguinius's legacy on a new scale. Reports from the Indomitus Crusade indicated that Guilliman valued Dante's leadership so highly that he was rumoured to have bestowed upon him renewed authority, possibly extending beyond Baal's realm to the Imperium Nihilus. For now, Dante's immediate focus remained on fortifying his chapter. New recruits would be carefully screened and trained. The fortress walls would stand taller, newly reinforced. Overlooking Baal's scarlet plains from the highest ramparts, he often recalled Sanguinius's selfless ideals. The cost to defend them had been immeasurable, but in preserving Baal, they had preserved the spiritual heart of the Blood Angels for future generations, primaris and otherwise. An oath unbroken. In the end, the outcome of this crisis taught the sons of Sanguinius a crucial lesson. Adaptation, not despair, was the key to their chapter's endurance. The new Blood Angels, though different in some respects, had proven their loyalty in the crucible of war. Their synergy with the existing Battle Brothers opened a pathway for reinvention without discarding tradition. The battered fortress now hummed with the promise of revival, each damaged corridor under repair, each new recruit forging a bond with the blood of the angel. With Baal's reconstruction underway, the chapter found itself not diminished, but perhaps renewed, scarred but spiritually invigorated. They had faced the jaws of Leviathan and lived to tell the tale. While the great rift still sundered half the galaxy, and new horrors loomed, the Blood Angels stood defiantly. Their faith in the Emperor and in Sanguinius's example had weathered a crucible few could fathom, and so, with bolters readied and eyes uplifted toward the blazing sun of Baal, they prepared for the next chapter in their ancient saga, a testament to the impossible resilience of those who bear the angel's blood.